If you're in your 50s with $5 million and you hate your job, are you safe to quit? We'll discuss that and more next. Today, we're looking at a really interesting post on Reddit. This was posted to the Chubby FIRE board. This is a group of people who are hoping to retire with, several $1,000,000 to live a decent lifestyle, but not an overly lavish one, but not a super cheap one either. So this post is coming from a 54-year-old man. He's married to a 46-year-old wife, and they have a net worth of approximately $5.4 million. And we'll get into the details of what is in that $5.4 million in just a second. He makes $230,000. His wife makes around $100,000. He works for a large company. He's really burned out. He's up for another role that would get his salary up to $300,000. But in the post here, he says, I don't think I want it, though, regardless of the money. So even though he could be looking at a $70,000 raise, just not into it anymore. He says he's really burnt out from the corporate culture, endless meetings, and dealing with all of that, which I'm sure many understand that. So he's wondering, do I have enough to pull the plug and quit my job? So he says, I have about $3.2 million that's accessible right now. Again, we're going to get into details in just a second, and the rest is in a 401k. The other really important detail that he gives here is that they spend around $10,000 a month, so $120,000 a year. And maybe that will go up to $150,000 a year. He mentions them having some expensive hobbies. So taking maybe a conservative view of, hey, our spending might increase as we go on here. So let's get into the numbers. Again, this is just my opinion. This isn't financial advice. This isn't personalized guidance for this person. It's just more about what are my observations? What would I maybe do if I was in a similar situation? So let's get into the numbers of this individual. Again, we already talked about their income, but let's go over their assets. So he says they have about $2.3 million in a brokerage account. Most of that is just in a stock market index fund. He's got around $100,000 almost in bond funds, $40,000 in cash, and the remainder in some individual equities like Apple, Amazon, and some Tesla and some AMD. He also calls out that he has $830,000 in crypto. So Bitcoin is almost $600,000 of that, Ethereum $250,000 with a cost basis of $70,000. So got in very early on crypto. Congratulations. Crypto can be a quite volatile asset, and we're going to come back to that in just a second. So $830,000 in crypto. Great, congratulations. But we're definitely going to come back to that. And $50,000 in precious metals, probably something like gold, something like that. And then in their retirement funds, he says that his 401k is $1.1 million. His wife's 401k is $450,000. He's got a Roth of $150,000. His wife's got a Roth of $50,000, and they have an HSA, which is a health savings account, of $95,000. He also calls out that they do own a home. They have $450,000 of equity in the home, 3 fully paid off cars, and the mortgage is 6 years into a 30-year mortgage at 3.25%. So pretty low there at around $2,000, a little more than $2,000 a month, all in payment, including insurance and property taxes. So still has 24 years to go on that mortgage. So bought the house relatively recently, and that is the only debt that they have. So there's their numbers. We go back to around 5 million, a little more than 5 million in net worth. The house again is around $450,000. So let's just look at their assets, taking the home equity out of the equation, because that's not a liquid asset that they can necessarily start drawing from. So they could sell it, but let's just look at that $5 million and try to put ourselves in the situations of, we're in our mid-50s, we hate our job, and we're looking, do I have enough? So a few things that jump out to me, really helpful, again, that he talks about his spending of about $120,000 a year. The first thing that really jumped out to me is the fact that his wife makes $100,000 is great. She's only 46. So my very first question, if this was me, I would ask my wife, I would say, how long do you want to work? Are you happy in your job? Because if she's miserable in her job and she's like, hey, I'm itching to quit too, I don't want to do this anymore, that's a big different conversation versus her coming and saying, I love my job. I want to work till I'm 65. This is great. Because if that's the case and she is really happy working, that's $100,000, assuming she has a stable job that they can pretty much rely on coming in every single year. And if they're only spending $120,000, that means there's only, call it a $20,000 to $50,000 on his high end of estimation of expenses that he's going to need to cover from his savings from the brokerage account, or maybe when he gets a little bit older into that 401k. So to me, that is the very first question I would ask my wife is, what is her thoughts on working? And is she happy continuing to do it? In that same conversation, I would also have the conversation of, how is she going to feel if I'm no longer working? And how is that going to put any strain or changes to our relationship? Does everyone have clear roles? If he stops working and she is working, and maybe she has a normal work schedule, if he has dreams of being able to retire and go on vacations, he may not be able to do that. So that would be my very first conversation, is figuring out from a household perspective how she feels. Let's assume that she loves her job and she's going to keep working, and then he's really only going to need to pull that small bit from the portfolio. If that's the case, pretty much that, you're talking about drawing $20,000 to $50,000 from a $5 million portfolio. That's an extremely, extremely low withdrawal rate. No matter how conservative you are, I would say most people would say that you're very unlikely to run out of money at that withdrawal rate. So I would say you should feel okay about that. Now, this is just me guessing, but this post is coming from someone who's maybe having a little anxiety of, hey, I've saved all this money and I don't really know how to spend it. And it's going to be a little bit scary making this transition. One thing I would note, again, we come back to the assets and the taxable assets. Let's assume their 401k is mostly in stock. This is a portfolio and someone who is very heavily exposed to the stock market and the crypto market, which can be quite volatile. We saw in 2022, the stock market dropped around 20, 25%. Crypto dropped even more. So I would ask yourself, you've got $5 million today in those assets, but if we have a time where maybe crypto falls 50%, it's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's very possible. The stock market falls 30%. Are you still going to feel okay about, oh gosh, I'm pulling some from my portfolio when things are down quite substantially? So only having that 90,000 in bond funds and 40K in cash, if it were me and I'm feeling some anxiety here, I would maybe consider lightening up my exposure to crypto, the stock market, just to make me sleep a little bit better at night, just in case we do have one of those bear markets in either crypto or the stock market. But again, if his wife is continuing to work, I wouldn't be concerned about it too much. Now let's address, she comes out and says, hey, I actually want to retire with you. That's a different conversation, because now that $100,000 is going out the window, and now they're fully drawing from their portfolio in order to fund their $120,000 to $150,000 lifestyle. Again, they're not even close to 62 yet. They're not eligible to claim Social Security for quite some time, especially his wife at only 46. So they have some time, but Social Security will kick in. So if it were me, you could potentially have both of them stop working. They do have $5 million that they will mostly be able to access in the next couple of years, including that 401k. It's not too far down the line that they can start tapping that. And then because the poster claims that he started working full-time at 18, he should have received plenty of Social Security credits. He should get a substantial Social Security check, whether he claims it early at 62 at full retirement age or waits till 70. He will have that income coming in as well. So overall, I understand where this person's coming from. It's a tough transition to move from working to go to retirement, but they did a great job of saving. They have great paying jobs. And the last thing I would just say, perhaps this person is miserable in their current job, but that doesn't mean that they could find another job that gives them that pleasure again. They mentioned early on in the post that I used to love my job, but I just fell out in love with it. There are many jobs out there. This person's only in their mid 50s. They probably have marketable skills that they could go out there. So even if they leave their job and maybe take a year or two, take a trial retirement, they might be able to get back in the workforce if they, one, for kind of just psychological reasons, miss going to work, or if something happens to the market and they need the income. I'm guessing this person's going to be able to come back and get a job, even if they don't make that same level of salary that they made before. That could be okay. They have such a nest egg, substantial nest egg, that they may not need to save tons and tons of money at this point in life. They can just keep growing that nest egg if they go back to work. So I want to hear what you have to say. What would you do if this was person, if you were in your mid 50s and you hated your job and you had $5 million? Tell us what you would do in the comments. We would love to hear it. And be sure to tune in next time for more 24/7 Wall Street Reacts.